Yeah?
Councillors up and down the land are joined in a battle to appear as though they're working for their money. If you were outed in the press as creaming off a six-figure salary plus expenses to the mutterings of your constituents, you'd want to seem useful too. Health and safety laws are a boon in this department. They enable the idle apparatchik to concoct all manner of silly rules that interfere with our daily lives and come with fines attached. Their latest wizard wheeze is to instruct bin men not to touch our dustbins unless the lid is on tight. This is to protect them against the menace of loose-fitting lids and to promote recycling, they say. Something that people don't need to be encouraged to do in the third world. In scenes that look like the prologue to a disaster movie, food fights are breaking out all over the third world. Not the throwing of food, you understand, it's too precious to use as missiles. No, these are riots over the lack of food. Violent unrest is spreading across the globe as precipitous rises in the cost of basic foodstuffs and shortage of rice and pasta are turning people against each other. Haiti, the Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Mauritania, Mozambique and Senegal. So far it's just places you're not likely to take a holiday in, so no one cares. And even if you did, your wealth compared to the locals wouldn't make you feel better. Indeed, our increased wealth now, compared to 20 years ago, doesn't make us feel better either. In almost every respect, we're better off in 2008 than we were in 1987. We live longer and in better health. We have about 3 times the disposable income as we did 2 decades ago. We go abroad more, have nicer things, better haircuts, and a flat-screen TV nailed to the wall of every room in the land. And we're still not any happier. A country that is healthy and wealthy and well-fed and watching satellite TV that has all this and still isn't happy has a problem. We have seriously got a bin lid loose. That is actually quite, it's a bit dispiriting, really, because if you look at the statistics, and I'll get to statistics a little later on, because there's a double-page thing in the extra section of The Independent today, so I can be fairly sure that no one read it, so I'll do that in detail. But the statistics about us now and how we were even just 20 years ago is dispiriting reading. How can we be better on every scale? How can we have 3 times as much money? This is like adjusted for inflation. So in real terms, we're 3 times better off, and our happiness levels have remained constant. Or should I say our misery level. What percentage of the population do you think claim they're happy?
20.
The actual answer is the total opposite of that. 80%. I would have thought it would be around 20 because, you know, it's like, mustn't grumble, but that's always comes after a great long list of grumbles, doesn't it? 80%. British families are healthier, twice as well off as they were 2 decades ago, but are no happier according to an official survey. Over the past 35 years, life expectancy has increased significantly for both men and women, while the number of people dying from heart disease and strokes has markedly declined, figures disclosed yesterday. Household wealth and expenditure has also doubled in Britain between 1987 and 2006. This is the ONS, the Office for National Statistics, are putting this out. Yet despite this boost in health and wealth, levels of contentment remain virtually unchanged. Between 1973 and 2006, people's satisfaction levels have hovered around an average of 86%. 86% of people in this country say they're satisfied. I find that hard to believe. There's just no end of people moaning about everything. When was the last time you answered the question, are you happy? Genuinely, with the answer yes.
Never.
Never. I can remember answering that question with... it's almost as though somebody else did it when I think back, but I asked, what's happy? As though I had no idea what to be happy actually was.
I think when you ask someone about being happy, it's the same time as if you ask someone, oh, who's your hero? Yeah. No one will say, oh, Jade Goody or something. They'll try and say something really clever because they want to sound clever. And I think a lot of people, if you said to someone, are you happy? Yeah. They don't want to say no because they instantly think about the third world or this or that, and they think, no, I should be happy. So I think they do say, I would say, even if I was having a particularly bad day, there are a lot of aspects in my life that, yeah, I'm quite satisfied. There's bits that I'm not satisfied with. The price of petrol, for a start.
So you're saying that in comparison with how life could be,
yeah,
your imagination running away with you, then you are happier than you would be if you were currently on the rack, for instance.
Yes.
The ONS said the plateau effect, the satisfaction levelling out at 86% in 1973, and also, despite being healthier and wealthier, wiser, about 30 years later, we're still as happy as we were back then. So this plateauing effect was an example of the Easterlin paradox, which is something I've never come across before. Maybe you should Wikipedia that. Other online encyclopedias are available. Easterlin, as in Easter, and then lin on the end. Paradox. In which the relationship between income and happiness declines after a certain level of wealth is reached. Well, maybe there's the explanation right there. It's like the law of diminishing returns. If you earn $5,000 a year, and you were standing next to somebody who earned $50,000 a year, then you'd have to assume that the person who's earning $50,000 is significantly happier than the person who's struggling by on $5,000, because £5,000 a year, that indicates that you'd be having trouble paying bills, and you don't know whether to buy fruit this week and all of that sort of stuff. Whereas $50,000 a year, you just waltz through Waitrose and you don't even look at the price of stuff. Now, if somebody was on $50,000 standing next to somebody who was on $100,000, you'd think, well, it's not so much. I mean, the difference in monetary amounts is, well, it's actually less, between 5 and 50 and between 50 and 100. But you'd think they'd be about the same. Now, if somebody who earned $1 million a year was standing next to somebody who earned $100 million a year, you'd think they'd be equally miserable. When was the last time you saw anybody who was worth a vast amount of money happy? Look at Roman Abramovich, for instance. That bloke's never smiled. He's got so much money that if he started counting it now, in 50s, he would need, for the rest of his life and his children's, to even get to the start of it. Right. In 1974, Richard Easterlin, a Californian economist, examined hundreds of surveys that asked Americans how happy they were. His conclusion, so shocked his colleagues he gave up on his research. Oh, he's taking it hard. He found that the explosion in wealth created by the post-war boom had not made Americans happier. Levels of misery and contentment were the same in 1974 as 1945. Also, by extrapolation, we're as happy now as we were in 73. Are we as happy now as we were in 1945? No, America had a happier time in 1945 than we did, I'm sure. I mean, I wasn't around at the time. But I think the 40s and even the 50s, up until the moment that teenagers were invented, was pretty grim, and it was in black and white for a start. I've seen the pictures. Awful. How boring must that have been? Everything was in black and white. You imagine. People enjoyed £5,000, about £5,500 of disposable income in 1971, compared with £13,000 in 2006. That's in real terms. That's, taking for inflation and so on. So that's almost 3 times as much. You'd think people would be doing a merry dance. This has led to a huge rise in the consumption of goods such as dishwashers, mobile phones and CD players. Alongside this increasingly comfortable existence, people are predicted to live longer. This is actually quite extraordinary, this. In 1971, life expectancy was 69 for men. 69 years old in 1971. In 2006, it was 77. That's massive. Unfortunately, it's the, wearing my glasses, dribbling phase of your life. For women, it was 75 in 1971, and now 82. According to the study, residents made a record 45 million trips abroad in 2006. That's an increase of 153% since 1986, with Spain and France being the top destinations. Most common leisure activity for 8 out of 10 Britons. Do you want to hazard a guess? Leisure activity. What do you do in your downtime?
Watching telly.
Watching telly is right. Maybe that's the clue right there. That's why we're not any happier. It's Coronation Street's fault. Well, as soon as you hear that funereal music, I just want to throw myself out the window. I think we've found the culprit right there. 7:44. LBC Travel with Alan Joyce.
Thanks, Nick. Some delays to the north of town first.
Absolutely. We have the big mayoral debate on tomorrow's Nick Ferrari show, of course. They'll all be here from 8. Nick will be here from 7 o'clock, as usual. It's your opportunity to question the three main party candidates. It's going to be Ken Livingstone versus Boris Johnson versus Brian Paddock versus Nick and you. Now, to get in on this programme, you can record your question ahead of time on the Your Question Counts message line. It's a different number to the one that we are running for the shows. It's 0870 1000 973. As in 0870 1000 973. If you dial that number, you can follow Nick's instructions, and your question could be featured on tomorrow's debate, which, let me remind you, is 8 o'clock onwards, the live mayoral debate on LBC 97.3. The number for this show, by the way, he said, throwing a giant amount of numbers at you just to be confusing, is 0845 6060 973. Poor Victoria's in there, eager to answer a phone call, hasn't had to do anything yet. I haven't given the number out yet. I'll do it now. 0845 6060 973. So I was talking about statistics a little while ago, and this thing in the Independent is all about that. And, you know, you can't pick up a paper on a daily basis without being overcome by a torrent of stats, which, according to the article here, is suggesting that they're all basically a load of old rubbish. Statistics can tell you anything you want, really. Flicking through a day's newspapers often feels like tackling a numerical assault course, it says here. Young people who use sunbeds increase their risk of skin cancer by 75%. 96% of children in European orphanages are not orphans. In the UK, we throw away 4.4 million apples a year. These are just 3 examples among dozens culled from yesterday's Nationals. Number crunching has always had the potential to bamboozle, and today, more than ever, is the age of the fraction, the percentage, and the average. It's not just newspapers either. Numbers crop up in adverts, health warnings, and speeches made by politicians too. But do the figures add up? And do we trust them? Well, kind of we do, yeah, particularly if they're written down. I don't know about you, but even though you know it's the paper that you're reading might not be a byword for truth and editorial vigour, because it's written down, there's something funny goes on in your brain. You just assume that it is practically the word of God. In much the same way as you wouldn't if you heard the very same person who wrote it saying it. You think, oh, that's just a bloke. I don't agree with that. But if it's written down and you don't know the identity of the person who wrote it, then you just assume that it must be true. Even though a distant warning bell in the back of your mind is telling you, no, hang on, this is rubbish. Number crunching has always had the potential to bamboozle, and today more than ever. I've read that bit. No, do we trust these figures? No, not really, according to another set of statistics that dropped onto the Independent's lap last month. In a survey by the Office of National Statistics, only 36% of people asked thought that official figures were generally accurate. Meanwhile, a 2007 poll of trust in government statistics by the European Commission, they ranked 27 countries and asked the population whether they trust their government. 27 countries. Where do you think we came? Towards the top, most trustworthy, middle, average, towards the bottom? Where do you think?
I'm guessing towards the bottom.
The bottom.
The bottom.
Not towards, the bottom. Out of 27 countries, we were last. And whose fault's that? That's actually quite staggering, isn't it? I mean, the fount of democracy. We gave democracy to the world. We think that our politicians are the least trustworthy on the planet. Something's gone seriously screwy. Last week, a statistics watchdog was launched to tackle this apparent crisis in confidence. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. A statistics watchdog. Another quango. Like we need another one of those. The UK Statistics Authority is tasked with ensuring stats are correct and free from government spin. Every day its website will provide links to raw data backing up government stats, and the authority will, warns its chair, name and shame ministers who spin beyond recognition. It's vital that statistics aren't altered to tell the story somebody wants to sell, he says. But it's impossible to eradicate that, because that's what statistics are all about. Like surveys. Every survey comes back with the answer that the person who conducted the survey wanted in the first place. You don't have to have a degree in psychology to know that. Kevin McConway, a senior statistics lecturer at the Open University, says statistical abuse damages his profession. Stats in the UK are usually pretty reliable, but more than often you see some surveys that mean nothing, data that looks important but isn't, or statistics that are just made up. It destroys public trust in all stats. Now, it goes on to name and shame some of the worst ones. To name and shame some of the worst offenders, The Independent has trawled through the archives for classic examples of junk statistics, from the poorly worded reports to deliberate massaging of official figures. And you'll remember some of these, and the headlines scream at you, and you think, oh, blimey, well, I better change my life then, because otherwise I'll die. And then you never read another thing about it from that day on. Like, a sausage a day increases the risk of bowel cancer by 1/5. You remember that one? Now, I don't know about you, but they also mentioned ham and bacon, you know, all the really good stuff. And as somebody who's recently become a meat eater again, it's very depressing, because those are the tastiest parts, right? Chicken, that's like... you know, chicken, it's like, it's all right, but it doesn't make you excited like bacon. Bacon. And they're telling you that if you eat it, you will die. But here's the truth of the matter. Last month, research circulated by the World Cancer Research Fund suggested that eating 50 grams of processed meat a day, equivalent to one sausage, increases the likelihood of bowel cancer by 1/5, or 20%. That's huge, right? 20%. Massive increase. It sounds worrying. After all, a 100% risk would mean you're guaranteed to catch cancer, and that figure of 20% doesn't seem far off. But the reality is neither as simple nor as scary as that. And I've always thought this about, you do this and you'll increase your chance of getting whatever by 20%. Now, what I have to... I'll read the rest of this and I'll tell you whether what I've always thought corresponds to what they're about to say. Isn't this exciting? Research shows that out of every 100 people, around 5 will develop bowel cancer within their lifetime, right? 5%. You with me so far? So what impact does eating sausages really have? If you take 100 people who eat 50 grams of processed meat a day, the amount of cancer will raise by 1/5, from 5 in 100 to 6 in 100. So to 99 of the 100 porkers, eating all those sausages will cause no difference at all. You with me there? So to increase by 1, that means for 100 people, 99% of them won't have any effect at all. Just the 1. You're looking confused. But of course, that seems far less shocking than a headline figure of 20% of a 20% rise. And how many people even eat 7 sausages a week anyway? Well, that's right. I mean, who does? Prince Philip? That's about it, right? He'll have it with his, kedgeree or toasted oat flakes or whatever it is he has in breakfast. Oh, Victoria's off again.
Sugar puffs. Oh, no.
Sugar puffs. I very much doubt it. So that's an example first off, and that's what I've always thought about these health scares. It says you blink rapidly and you will increase your risk of dying by 20%. But how many people die from blinking rapidly? Almost nobody at all. So to increase by 20%, it's from a very small base. It means it will basically, this risky behaviour will have no effect on your life at all. But it does give an exciting headline, which is what newspapers are after, essentially. They're not really interested in the truth of the matter. They don't want to delve too deeply. They're just interested in the big shock headline, especially the Mail, whose existence seems to be all about frightening its readers to death, making them scared to even get up, let alone leave the house. But it gives them a big headline, and then they can, having scared us to death, they can just carry on their merry way and forget about it. Meanwhile, we're throwing all of our bacon away. So that's just one example. There's more. We have a How Low auction going on at the moment, by the way. It's for a very lovely 32-inch Samsung LCD television. Every day this week we've been giving away one of these. To win one yourself, you should enter our newest reverse auction. It's a widescreen LCD TV. It has a Freeview box essentially built in it, so you don't need another set-top box to enjoy all of those extra channels. It's a reverse auction, this. The person with the lowest unique bid wins. You could essentially win it for 1 penny, if nobody else bids that. To bid, text LBC plus your bid in pence to 88821. For example, if it was, say, 23 pence, it would be LBC 23 to 88821. Bids cost £1.50 plus your standard network rate. Lines close at 7 p.m. Thursday, the 10th of April. Bidders must be over 16. To see the full terms and conditions, you should go to the website, which is allthews.lbc.co.uk. It's a 32-inch Samsung LCD TV. To bid, text LBC plus your bid in pence to 88821. And the very best of luck. The number here, 0845 6060 973. You're listening to LBC 97.3. I'm Nick Abbott, and we are heading towards the news.
I'm Jane. I'm
Tom. He knows everything.
There was a couple of things that I found a bit strange about that news broadcast. Not the news broadcast itself, but the contents of what was in it. First of all, George Clooney. Oh, please, do us a favour, mate. You've never woken up ugly in your life. How annoying is that? It's just really irritating, isn't it? I mean, for the rest of us, who we don't only wake up ugly, we walk through the day looking like this. I mean, look at me, for instance. Disgrace. And we look at blokes like that and say, oh, no, I don't really feel that good looking. Shut up, mate. And the other thing was the police taking all that booze off the kids. It's another example of statistics, of course. 37,000 pints, that's what they said, right? They said they'd confiscated, now correct me when I go off-piste here, but 37,000 pints, is that what they said? 37,000 pints, which they took off a reported 5,143 perps. Yeah? Do the maths, and it's over 7 pints each. How are they carrying that around, then? I don't believe them. Who carries 7 pints around with them?
There's more, though. Not only was it 37,000 pints,
yeah.
On top of that, there was 1,165 litres of wine.
And 2 bottles of sherry for the ladies.
1,027 litres of spirits. And 1,255 litres of Alco Pops.
Right, now hang on a minute. Read that again.
1,165 litres of wine.
Litres? Right,
Yeah.
okay.
1,000...
Must be that cheap screw-top stuff that they sell in litres, yeah. Does it come in a box?
I dread to think. 1,027 litres of spirits.
1,027 litres of spirits.
And 1,255 litres of Alco Pops. But it was half-term, in fairness.
1,000... how many?
255.
Litres of Alco Pops. You see, not even Sainsbury's carries that much booze. That's impossible. They should have figured that out before they came out with these statistics, and now I don't believe them. So not only do they have 7 pints each, but I've got my phone out, so I'll add it up. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, it's about 1,400. Oh no,
I've got the total if you want.
I'm dialing 1,400. I've yet to figure out how to use this. The total of what?
The total volume of all alcohol. There's 44,266 pints.
44,266
266
pints.
So then divide that by...
Divided by 5143. That's over 8.5 pints each. They're not of just a beer, but of spirits as well. Rubbish. I've never heard such a load of old rubbish in all my life. How could they come out with that nonsense? No, they didn't. They took over 8.5 pints of alcohols, strong and otherwise, from children over a 2-week period. Nonsense. They wouldn't have the strength to carry it. I mean, when you go into in an offie, you buy how much for yourself? A couple of cans. 3, 4 at most. Maybe 6. Tops. Not 6, not 7 pints, because the cans don't come as pints either, do they? Not 7 pints and a bottle of scotch. These kids are 13. That's crazy. No, I'm not having it. I don't believe you. Who said that?
I believe it's the police.
Yes, I know. Which police?
It's a joint operation across multiple forces, so you can't blame any one individual.
Oh, right, OK. Well, we'll get off scot-free there, then. Nobody can complain. You can't libel an organisation. If it's all of them, then they're all equally guilty or not, as the case may be. I very much doubt it. But, of course, people will receive this information with a sharp... And they won't do the mathematics. They'll just say, 37,000... That's a tremendous... How? Really? Gosh, we should bring back the birch, or whatever it is that they... Or they need more care. You know, whichever paper you read, it'll be the Mail or the Guardian. One of the two. And there's just like sharp intakes of breath all round, and people think, gosh, isn't that awful? Without thinking, hang on a minute, that's rubbish. I don't believe it. They must have added it up wrong. Or they're telling porkies in order to further their... I don't know, why would they lie about that?
In order to them look more useful, they've done all this work.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. That could be a reason. Or it could be that kids really are going out with enough drink to kill a moose. Or they just picked on children in a particularly drunken part of the country. So it's all about statistics, and I can't believe that there was a statistic right in the news that it was a perfect example of what we're talking about here. Here's another statistical headline, and then the story behind it, OK? Over 40% of families spend 8 hours or more a week together. Now, this was commissioned, commissioning a scholarly survey or study is a popular choice for companies who want to get their names in the papers. And whenever I read out one of those, survey says, blah, blah, I always omit to read out the name of the company involved just to irritate them. And disappointing results from these surveys needn't get in the way of a bit of PR. Last month, a family holiday firm called Centre Parks sent out a release designed to counter the image of the British family in terminal decline. Kind of to reinforce that whole OXO family, everyone sitting around the table, everyone loves mum, right? The headline read, "The family, it's not toxic, it's thriving." And the best stat Centre Parks could muster to back up its claim, with over 40% of families spending 8 hours or more a week together, a new study suggests that actually families like each other and want to spend time together. And you think, oh yeah, oh gosh, that does sound nice. Families. OK, families, they're back in fashion. But then you think about it. Is that really what it suggests? If 40% of families spend 8 hours or more together, that must mean that 60%, or to put it another way, the majority, spend fewer than 8 hours a week together. And 8 hours a week is equivalent to 68 minutes a day. Put it that way, and the figures hardly endorse Centre Park's vision of a thriving family. We can't stand each other.
We spend longer together.
Well, that's right. And we can't stand each other either. We are the perfect family. Here's a call for me, Forest Hill. Hello, Jill.
Yeah, only for you, no one else.
Jill.
Yeah, I've just come in and I caught you having your Victor Meldrew moment about kids and alcohol with the police I don't know, whatever, haul of alcohol and your disbelief. Well, I would more than believe that because a friend of mine had a birthday party for her boy when he was 16, his 16th one, and said he could have it in the home and invite all his friends.
Crazy?
Yes, it was very it was very bad, but it was very carefully monitored. Obviously, no, what do you call them? Gate crashes. Yeah.
Right.
But well, having said that, she seconded all of her adult friends, me included, to sort of be bouncers or whatever, monitor them all as security. Yes. Or 5 foot nothing of me anyway, and a bit. Anyway, so in fact, 14-year-olds were all taller than me. Anyway. So, yeah, what happened was she said no alcohol. She put it on the email.
No alcohol? Oh, man.
Well, they were 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, I think was the oldest.
Yeah.
There was only a few of those. Anyway, do you know, she confiscated. We were running around searching them, finding alcohol on them, even those that had been drinking before they arrived.
Yeah.
She's got a big garden, and we were even finding alcohol. They were then taking it outside and hiding it behind the plants and the rose bushes.
What, so they'd pass a search?
Sort of semi-burying it, yeah. Right. She took out, it was 6 bin liners, black bin. I'm really not exaggerating here at all. And in fact, I came home with, because it was just too bad to bin, all these bottles of...
Well, that's right.
Alcohol.
Recycling, Jill.
Yeah, absolutely. Malibu and everything. Big bottles. I'm not even talking small bottles.
Malibu.
I was sorted for the next, half a year, I think, with the alcohol I brought back.
Malibu?
Oh, I was just thinking it as an example. I mean, there were wine, there was wine, and there was lots of gin and some rum, and yes, lots of Gordon's gin. She says, looking at one of the bottles that was come to.
Without mentioning any brand names, Gordon's gin, yes.
Oh, sorry, yeah, and all the other wonderful brands and some vodkas. So they were on the hard stuff, and well, there's a story about one of them. Which is, I won't say, because, anyway, I won't.
Oh, go on. Name that person. Name them and shame them. What's their address? When are they having a party?
What's their address? It's any home that's got teenagers.
Right.
I really believe that they, we all experiment.
But Jill,
I did it at young age,
not 8 pints each.
No, it's getting excessive now. I don't even think, when I was younger, which isn't that long ago, that, we drank to the level that they are drinking at now. But having said that, it was a lot more expensive when I was younger.
Well, that's right. Everything was more expensive.
Alka-Pops wasn't around,
Yeah, that's true. Well, with cider. Cider was the Alka-Pops of the day. That's how I started. In fact, I started on cider and I stuck on it for, up until the present day.
Do you know there's a new version?
What?
Of cider. There's a new version of it. There's peach cider.
Ugh. I'm recoiling just at the very thought of it.
I know, ew. But I think
peach cider.
But doesn't cider, the word cider, I mean, it has to come from apples. And there's
I think you can have pear cider, can't you?
Oh, no, not peach, pear.
Pear. That doesn't sound quite as revolting, yes.
Got the peaches and the pears.
I could do with a couple of pints of that right now, as a matter of fact. So, Jill, I've got to go. Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye.
Ta-ra. 8:15. LBC Travel with Will Gowing.
Thanks very much, Nick. Still
Absolutely. The phone number 0845 6060 973. I'm talking about statistics today and how they are used to bamboozle us. Mostly. Here's another headline. You might remember this just recently, and then the story behind it, okay? Toothless postmenopausal women are 3 times as prone to hypertension as those with teeth. You're screwing your face up. Like, what?
That many toothless people out there.
This news, reported in the respected Journal of Hypertension, might have led to queues of denture-wearing women of a certain age at GP surgeries. However, the study by Japanese researchers, published in 2004, suggested that tooth loss in postmenopausal women was directly linked to high blood pressure, which can increase the risk of heart disease and strokes. But if you look past the headlines, they reveal a problem. The scientists based the conclusion on a study of just 98 women, 67 with missing teeth and 31 with teeth intact. In statistical terms, that is almost an insignificant sample size. The problem is that the apparent cause of a link can sometimes be pure chance. The smaller the sample, the more likely this becomes. One statistician famously managed to find a statistically significant correlation between birth rates in various European countries and the stork population, suggesting that storks really do deliver babies. And an example of this was all over the papers today. Drug trials are stopped early when they get a positive result. The usefulness of some cancer drugs are being exaggerated because manufacturers are stopping trials the moment they find a benefit, experts are warning today. And recently, you haven't been able to pick up a decent paper without we've cured this and great breakthrough in that, and it seems as though no matter what you're going to be, cast down ill with, shortly everything will be curable. Researchers have discovered a sharp increase in the number of studies that are terminated early, and they argue that drugs companies are halting the trials whenever benefits are discovered. They use the premature results as the basis for license applications. As a result, the researchers claim drugs are being hailed as breakthroughs, but could be of less benefit or even cause more harm. So it's kind of exactly the same way. They're taking a small survey sample and not going through, the years and years or decades or whatever it is to examine the efficacy of the drug. They're doing it for just long enough for some good to be noticed, and then they're stopping. You might get a little bit better and then die, but that's not the part they're reporting. They're just going to stop at the little bit better part. I mean, you might explode in flames 2 hours after being cured, but they won't tell you about that. Writing in an online journal, one of the doctors said that this suggests a commercial component in stopping trials prematurely. This is where it gets sort of a bit evil, really. We are aware that trials stopped early because they're showing benefit may result in the identification of promising new treatments for patients, he said. However, findings obtained in this way require subsequent confirmation. Without such evidence, unsafe and ineffective drugs could be marketed and patients' health could well be jeopardised. But that doesn't stop the newspapers from rushing to print any old rubbish that they hear from the medical community, which is why every day there's we've cured Alzheimer's. I mean, just yesterday it was drink a cup of coffee a day and you won't get Alzheimer's. Didn't they? If you'd read the same paper last week, it would have said, drink a cup of coffee a day and your heart will explode through your chest and splat on the wall in front of you, while your eyeballs shrivel and fall out their sockets. Something like that. So you
won't live long enough to get Alzheimer's?
Yes, that's right, I suppose so, yeah. So that's another example in which they lie about stats. There's some others. I've got 3 more, okay? These are more familiar. Speed cameras cause a decrease in deaths on the road. Now, you've heard that bandied about. It's one of the government's favourite statistics. It's an excuse to keep fining us all the time under the guise of helping us. Coconuts falling from trees kill 150 people a year. You know that one, right? Actually, Keith Richards falling from trees is also very dangerous, but that hasn't been reported. And the number of American children gunned down has doubled every year since 1950. This is a statistic that's been around for decades now. I'll do this one first. Because if you think about it, perhaps you're way ahead of me. Sometimes junk statistics are caused by simply lazy wording. Perhaps the worst example came in a prospective PhD student's dissertation published in 1995. It appeared in the first chapter of Damn Lies and Statistics by Joel Best, who called it the worst social statistic ever. It read, every year since 1950, the number of American children gunned down has doubled. Can you do the mathematics? Say only one child was gunned down in 1950. Let's start from a very low base. According to our student, that number would have doubled every year. So 2 dead in 1951, right? 4 in 1952. So far, so good. 8 in 1953. If you fast forward to 1960, you're on 1,024. Still not a giant amount. And so on, and on and on. And by 1995, the year of the report, 35 trillion children are gunned down every year in America.
What?
This is a very serious problem. It has to be stopped. What they actually meant to say was that the number of children killed each year by guns has doubled since 1950. So it's doubled over the 45 intervening years between 1950 and when the report was written. Not every year. You'd think if 35 trillion children were shot, we'd have heard about it. It would have been on the news at some point, don't you think? In between, what Kate Moss is wearing today and the latest stupid thing that Jade Goody said. So that's another example in which stats can lie, and because it's reported once, it just becomes part of common knowledge. Oh, yeah, it's doubling every year. People have said ever since. Until they think, hang on a minute, well, wait, whoa, no, that's not right. Speed cameras and coconuts. Which do you want to hear about?
Coconuts.
Coconuts. Falling coconuts kill 150 people a year. In 2002, an article about the uprooting of coconut trees by lawsuit-wary Australian officials... see, it's not just us. This health and safety gone mad craziness has affected the whole world, even in Australia. Uprooting coconut trees. The Daily Telegraph at the time reported coconuts kill about 150 people worldwide each year, making them more dangerous than sharks. Nobody ever pounded into the surf to rescue their mate from a coconut. The figure appeared again in a press release issued by a travel insurance firm, keen to assure holidaymakers that they would be covered if they were struck by a coconut. The report suggested that the figure of 150 came from a Canadian professor, but his paper on coconut injuries did not posit a death toll. And in there is part of the why people object to all these nonsense PhDs and research grants that essentially we're all paying for. They're just... can you imagine doing a PhD thesis on coconuts falling out of trees? I mean, how bored would you have to be? Good grief. The case echoes a similar statistical legend. Hang on a minute. The report suggested that a figure of 150 came from a Canadian professor. Various attempts to trace the origin of the figure have failed. In other words, it was just something that somebody plucked out of the air because nobody has ever been able to substantiate it. But the Daily Telegraph, a paper of record, printed it. Australia was uprooting coconut trees because of it. And it's nonsense. Nobody has ever proven that or even suggested that it's true. It's just something that somebody said once, and by Chinese whispers, it just got about, and suddenly Australia was going crazy, and insurance companies were insuring us against it. The case echoes a similar statistical legend, the belief that to be healthy we should drink 8 glasses of water a day. There's another one, just recently, right? Just lately they were telling us you must drink 8 glasses. In fact, it's government policy. I'm sure if you go to the website, there's a picture of a glass of... here's a glass of water yesterday. This undrunk glass of water has been fined. Also nonsense, apparently. The belief to be healthy that we should drink 8 glasses of water a day. Last week, researchers at the University of Pennsylvania decided to search for the source of this statistic. Their conclusion, it's unclear where this recommendation came from. In other words, they couldn't find any study to support the 8 glasses claim. It's just become part of what we deem general knowledge. But it's not knowledge, it's generally held beliefs, but it's not knowledge at all. It's rubbish. In fact, there was something that somebody suggested where this came from. Back in the, 50s in America, they said, to keep yourself hydrated, you've got to drink 8-ounce measures of fluid a day. Which somebody said water, right? So that doesn't count tea and beer and scotch and Ribena and, everything else that people drink. But it does. All you need is, apparently, just to drink that amount of fluid in some form. I'll have 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps, please. Actually, I would like 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps. And whatever you're having.
So we don't want 8 pints?
Yeah. I'll have 7 pints of lager and a bottle of Scotch Chaser.
And the crisps.
Well, I'll be feeling a bit full after all that, I would think. I'll do speed cameras when we come back, because I shall shortly be running out of time. Let me just remind you of how to get your question on with Nick and the mayoral candidates tomorrow. If you call the Your Question Counts message line, which is 0870 1000 973, in other words 0870 1000 973, you will hear Nick Ferrari instruct you, and if you follow those instructions, your question could be featured on tomorrow's debate. You can also email your question for the candidates to yourquestioncounts@lbc.co.uk. So that's all one word, yourquestioncounts@lbc.co.uk. Or, as I say, you can phone it in 0870 1000 973, and Ken and Boris and Brian will be here at 8 tomorrow.
Hello.
Okay, last one, and then I might talk about... I don't know what to talk about, actually. There wasn't very much in the papers today, was there? It was a bit boring. There's the fosterers who were denied a child because they slapped their kids. I didn't quite put it like that, but... women are much more evil than men. Let me explain that. I had a little bit of a dig, as did some of the papers, about Colleen, Wayne's fiancée. I thought, that whole get-up that her and her Twiglet friends showed up at Aintree Inn was a bit of a laugh, and we felt... And so did the papers. It wasn't just me. And we felt a bit sniffily superior about it. But, and presumably all of those comments were written by blokes. Most journalists are men. However, they were all a bit kind, I thought. We could have really got in there with... and just dug her a hole with a spade. When Alison Pearson, who's a columnist on the Mirror... What does she write for? I'll say Mirror. She had a go at Colleen, and, I'm surprised she's still alive, actually. It was awful. Blood on the walls. So, I think that women are actually, back me up or correct me if I'm wrong, are much more unpleasant to women than men are.
I notice you're saying this through 3 panes of glass from the nearest woman.
Well, I'm asking the question. Yes. Speed cameras.
No, women.
Yes.
I think it entirely depends. Women are fiercely loyal, and yet also, I think...
It's a yes.
No, I'm trying to defend action. It's difficult, I would say, and I don't want to sound overly feminist on this, but because women have a lot of problems in the workplace still, as you just said, most men are journalists. So, coming from myself trying to get into journalism, it's been quite difficult, and I have found, generally, in the office, for example, that women can be a little bit more guarded than men, because they're a bit threatened, because they seem to think, there can only be one woman in this workplace because there's so many men.
That just doesn't wash anymore. I mean, there's so many women who are running companies, particularly in media and show business now. I mean, that just doesn't exist anymore. That sort of glass ceiling nonsense. I just don't believe it.
And I absolutely agree with you, but I somehow think the psyche's still in there.
Well, that's not men's fault. We're not pigs because of it, because you can't get your head around the reality of the situation. No, but that had precious little to do with what I was talking about, though. I mean, if you look at journalism, and look at Sly Bailey, she's running the Mirror Group titles, is she not? She's a woman, I believe. And Rebecca Wade, what's she doing now? She was running the News of the World. Is she still doing that? Well, she can't have gone too far. And BBC Radio is run by a woman. One of the biggest companies in radio was recently, and I believe still is, for a limited period, being run by a woman. So that's just nonsense. That it's a male-dominated industry, and women are cowering in the background and they can't get ahead. I don't believe it for a second. Anyway, back to this stats thing, and then I'll go on to something else. Speed cameras, close to our hearts. This is about the misrepresentation of statistics by the authorities and people who want to cash in on false stats. Speed cameras are 35%. Cause a 35% decrease in deaths and serious injuries. This was the headline. Here's the background to it. In 2003, the then Transport Secretary, Alistair Darling, issued a press release that read, deaths and serious injuries fell by 37% on roads where speed cameras have been in operation. He went on to say, the report clearly shows speed cameras are working. This means that more lives can be saved and more injuries avoided. The suggestion that cameras caused the drop in accidents got Darling into trouble. Figures go up and down all the time. It's never the same from year to year. 1 year it's up, 1 year it's down. It's just the way it goes. Contentious issues get more coverage when numbers are high. So the government does something about it. The numbers having peaked then go down. Naturally, the government takes credit for the fall. Challenged to prove the link in the speed camera case, the transport ministers had to back down and revise their claim. In other words, they'll see a statistic on and up, and it'll be a peak at the top, just because it's up 1 year and down the next. Always has been. Say it was up in 2000, down in 2001, up in 2002, down in 2003, up in 2004. So they'll say, right, I'll take it in 2004 when it was up, not in 2003 when it was down. We'll start there, where it can't hardly possibly go up. I mean, historically speaking, it's never been as high as it is there in 2004. You're almost bound, no matter what you do. Even if you blindfold all drivers, it's bound to go down. And so, you can claim credit for that drop. It would have gone down anyway. If you'd started the baseline the previous year, it would have looked as though your actions were a giant failure. Because it would have been either the same, or a little bit down, or just a tiny little bit up. So it very much depends on where you start. And they know this, but it's something that doesn't really occur to you when you're reading the statistic in the newspaper. Deaths are down on the roads thanks to our munificent leadership. And you think, oh, well, that's a good thing then. Well, I guess speed cameras are a good thing. But they're only down because they chose the date at which they started to look at the figures. If they'd started a year previously, it wouldn't have looked so good. Sneaky, eh? Anyway, that's the statistical lesson over for today. And that's the thing about statistics, they're fascinating.
Boring!
I had one exam in the first year at university, just one, statistics. It was an open book exam. Hard to believe that such a thing exists. You could take all your textbooks in, and a calculator, and everything, and all of your notes, everything. I got a D. Isn't that shocking? But, of course, the D is only a statistic.
That'd be an A in today's money.
Well, that's right. Yes, I shall claim that as an A, yeah. The number 0845 6060 973, and I haven't really thrown out anything for you to get your teeth into. And I hesitate to do it because, well, it'll be, but here's something that might get you motivated. A couple have been barred from fostering a child because they smack their own child as a last resort. Now, there must be no end of children who are desperate for fostering, right? I mean, the homes must be at bursting point. Here's a couple. They look perfectly nice and reasonable. They smack their own child as a last resort when everything else has failed, which seems just the very thing, right? Refused to even be looked at as a fostering couple because they were told the truth, basically. A couple have been prevented from fostering children after insisting on the right to smack their own daughter as a last resort. They told an adoption panel that they would never smack a foster child, but might physically chastise their own daughter once or twice a year. Despite initially being recommended as good candidates by social workers, the couple were turned down for fostering after refusing to reconsider their position. Well, essentially after refusing to lie about it. They say, would you like to answer that question again? Wink, wink. And good for them, they said no. They said, based on the evidence presented to the council, we can't understand why we are unsuitable, and it seems to have been we seem to have been excluded on the basis that we physically chastise our birth child in accordance with our beliefs and UK law. I'm sure other parents would have just lied. He said, our birth daughter is only chastised physically as a last resort, amongst a whole range of other forms of behaviour management strategies, which include rewards and sanctions. The council is... and on that. But those nannies that appear on television, who are they? What qualifications do they actually have? I mean, the stuff they come out with, I could make that up.
Why aren't you on telly then?
Huh?
Why aren't you on telly then? Go on.
I don't want to be on telly. Pointing their finger in the child's face and telling them go and sit over there. And they're just making this stuff up. They don't look like... all of the nannies that are on TV, they don't look like the sort of people that you'd want to put your children with, do they? Most of them look like camp commandants. The council has made us feel like we're bad parents, and yet we do nothing that hundreds of thousands across the UK do as loving, responsible mothers and fathers. Parents are legally allowed to smack their children. If it's considered a reasonable chastisement, and provided they have no more than a transitory mark, whatever that is. They were turned down last month following a 14-month approval process. Good grief. What could possibly take 14 months? And you think that, if you actually think about this, the approval process that you need to go through to foster a child, it's actually crazy. Because people are allowed to give birth to children without any checks at all. With the result that, what you see today. The British Association for Adoption and Fostering said it believed that smacking was generally inappropriate. It is still lawful, though. The Children Act removed the defence of reasonable chastisement from parents who left more than a transitory mark on their child. Causing a bruise, reddening skin, or psychological injuries can result in an assault charge and 5 years jail. And the kids know it. Let's have Stevenage. Arvo, is that your name?
Oh, yes, yes, Avo is correct, actually.
Avo.
Hi, Nick. I really do appreciate hearing you. Your sceptical attitude is out of this world, and you're quite right. It's going to be necessary to break down all this political correctness and God knows what other fantastic crowd phenomena are happening at the moment. But I'll tell you why I rang you. It's just that you were on about something to do with transport, and I thought, MOT tests. I remember when I was much younger, must have been, I don't know, late 60s, early 70s, something like that. When did the MOT tests come in?
I don't know.
Well, it was somewhere around there, in the dim, distant past. You probably weren't even born then. And the thing is, there was a Minister of Transport called Ernest Marples, and he brought these things in as because at the time the British motor industry, I think it was Leyland or something, were in dead trouble as usual before they went bust. And no, sorry, they didn't go bust, but they came off the market. And they wanted people to throw away their old cars and buy new, wonderful British cars. But of course, that couldn't be used as an excuse to bring in the MOT tests. So what it was, vehicles are having an awful lot of accidents because they're defective, they're old, they're worn, there's backlash on the steering wheel, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now... It so happens that some other character discovered that just at the same time as these tests were introduced, the Ministry of Transport had actually stopped keeping statistics on defective vehicle accidents because there weren't enough of them.
Right. So the reason that they get brought in MOTs, you're saying, was not the stated reason that they just wanted to sell more British cars.
Absolutely. There was no question about it.
And they were saying that they're bringing it in because more cars are having more accidents, but they'd actually stopped...
keeping statistics on it.
Right. Well, that sounds like it fits right in.
That sounds like government.
Yes, it does. All right, thanks very much, Arlo.
Can you want another little interesting thing that somebody quoted? It's no originality, but he said, there is no problem that's bad enough that government can't make worse.
Right. Okay, thanks a lot. 0845 6060 973. Coincidentally enough, it's 8:45. And time for the travel news with Will Gowing.
Thanks very much, Nick. And if you're heading out to the west...
Affirmative.
Yes, it's 0845 6060 973. I was talking a little while ago about women are worse to other women than men are to women. Now, you were talking about the difficulty of women getting on in the workplace because traditionally they are fighting against the male piggery that's around them, right? I mean, you didn't put it like that.
No. Just women are guarded because they think there's less space for women than there are for men.
Right. I think that women are worse to other women than men are to other women.
I think that's true, but I think that's partly because women know where the boundaries are better than men. Men can always manage to insult people. If they see a bloke at a dinner table and they're all having a big joke, it will always be the bloke that says something that stuns everyone else into silence. Right. Whereas a woman is better to judge and feels that they just know more and can comment, I think.
This is Alison Pearson talking about Colleen McLaughlin. OK, we may have smiled fondly when Colleen McLaughlin arrived at Aintree Races wearing a Grecian goddess-style dress that made her look like a pit pony in a baby doll nightie. Bless. Compared to the other fashion fillies, their family-sized baps straining to get over their frocks like two horses going neck and neck at the final fence, Colleen looked positively sophisticated. But I'm afraid the chief wag's decision to dress up as Audrey Hepburn for Closer magazine just makes me mad, says Alison Pearson. Not so much breakfast at Tiffany's as Happy Meal at H. Samuel. Audrey was extravagantly beautiful, exquisitely refined, and became one of the great style icons of the 20th century. Colleen is cheerful, orange, and about to become Mrs. Potato Head. She may think she's paying tribute to Audrey Hepburn by donning a toupee and a little black dress. Well, she ain't. Colleen McLaughlin is for tomorrow's fish and chip wrapping. Audrey Hepburn was for all time. That's a pretty comprehensive drubbing, I think, and it's far worse than anything that she got from the press in general, who really were just sniggering a little bit and then saying how great that they thought she was. But it took a woman to dig a hole for her and bury her up to her neck in it. Thanks, Alison. Let's have... one on the M1. Hands-free, I hope.
Yes, it is.
Bina.
Hello.
Hello.
I just want to share an experience I had. You were just talking about fostering.
Oh, yeah.
We were looking at adoption. So we had the social worker and talking about our medical history, etc. And I happened to mention my husband was a smoker. And she said to him that he needed to stop smoking immediately if we were to be considered for adoption, which I think is really appalling. So I just turned round to her and I said, but there are women out there that are pregnant and are smoking. How do you stop them? There's nothing wrong with our history. There's nothing wrong with it. As you can see, we're both working class people. And you're telling us that, my husband would have to stop smoking in order for us to progress any further.
Yeah.
I just found that really appalling.
And so what happened?
Well, nothing, because my husband obviously has been smoking for such a long time. He hasn't given up, so we didn't progress any further because we can't.
Right. Well, that must have been a bit disappointing.
But it was just a total shock, considering that we've had so many bouts of IVF, IUI, etc. We've had failure, so this was our last route, if you like.
Yeah.
And we thought, there are loads of kids out there that need a home, and we can provide a home that's secure, etc. And we were told that, we could do, possibly, if my husband stopped smoking. And they tested him to make sure that he had stopped smoking.
Oh, really?
They weren't lying. So we could have, just like this couple, we could have lied and said, no, he's a non-smoker, but we didn't. We were honest. And I think for honesty, you don't get anything. And that's where we, as society, are going wrong, I think, because there are a lot of people out there that do, are honest and tell you as it is, and obviously can't seem to progress in life.
Yeah, and what nice guys come last.
Yes, they do, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, didn't it, did you have this conversation with your other half? Oh, go on, give up the fags.
Yeah, we've had that conversation, and he tried, and, he has reduced the amount he smokes. But what she said is that he'd have to stop immediately, and, this is something you can't stop overnight.
And not just...
for somebody who's been doing it for years.
Right, and not just stop for the period when the child that you're adopting is really young, but stop forever, right?
Yeah. Because they'll continue, and the cycle of adoption is, you were talking about 14 months for fostering.
Yeah.
The cycle for adoption could take up to 3 years. And even after 3 years, after going to court, they may turn around and say you're not successful. You go through all that pain, and you tell them your life history, etc.
Yeah.
And then it could all go down the pan.
And during that time, so they haven't put a child with you during that 3 years, and then turn around and say you can't have them anymore.
No.
Right. Okay. So it's like these are the hoops that you have to leap through.
Yeah.
Before. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing, really, when you think that any dope can just have sex and produce a baby.
Well, you see this, I shouldn't mention this, but you see this on Jeremy Kyle.
Well, yes.
All these couples are coming on the show that don't really want to have kids, but have them and can't even give them a home. And here's a couple that can give them a home, security and a life, but, we've been told, well, you've got to do X, Y, and Z.
Bina, the whole world's gone crazy.
Yes, you're telling me. And
all right.
There's worse to come.
Oh, you mean there is? I thought you were going to tell me worse, but...
No, I think there's worse to come.
In general, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You.
Drive carefully.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. 0845 6060 973. That is a kind of bizarre, isn't it? That they are so strict about adoption, whereas you think that... I know it's a difficult area, but you'd think that people should have to have a test before they get pregnant. Don't you think? There should be some sort of exam that they go through, some sort of screening process. It would help, be honest. I mean, no politician is going to suggest such a thing, of course. But in an ideal world, it would actually make for a better society, wouldn't it? A few fewer stupid people having 12 babies. There is a How Low auction going on at the moment. It's for a 32-inch Samsung LCD TV. It's going to close tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the evening. This is one of these HD-ready jobs, widescreen. It's got built-in free view. It's a reverse auction. The person with the lowest unique bid wins. That's the lowest bid in pence that no one else makes. The game closes 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. And to enter, text LBC plus your bid in pence to 88821. If it was going to be, say, £1.56, you would text LBC 156 to 88821. Bids cost £1.50 plus your standard network rate. Lines close 7 p.m. Thursday, 10th April. Bidders must be over 16. See lbc.co.uk for full terms and conditions. Here's a call in Brentwood. Hello, David.
Hello.
David.
I was just listening to your programme about fostering. I was one of the lucky ones. I was fostered at 6 months old, and my foster mother should have had me for 3 days, and she had me for 30 years.
Oh, right.
And I was with her until she died at the age of 82, when I was 30.
She should have only had you for 3 days?
And she had me for 30 years.
Why should she have only had you for 3 days?
Because my biological mother never came back.
Right.
And back then in Suffolk, it was completely different. And I was the most spoilt child that ever. I was the first one in my family to have a video. Back then in 77, I mean, you paid £600-700 for a video.
Yeah, video. Well, it used to take up half the living room, didn't it?
Very much so. But I was very lucky. I was one of the lucky ones, I really was. And when I see people like the caller before me said about Jeremy Kyle, and I, you know, it just makes me laugh, you know, and I just think how lucky I was.
Society would actually, this is impossible to carry out, but society would actually be a lot better if prospective parents had to undergo the same sort of rigorous testing that foster parents had to go through before they gave birth.
Well,
Am I right?
My mother was my stepmom, or my mum as it were. She was not a single parent. She was her husband had died before she fostered me.
Right.
And then you had to be you couldn't foster unless you was over 40. And my mother wanted to adopt me, but they wouldn't let her adopt me because she was over 40. But,
so you had to be over 40?
You had to be over 40.
That's a bit bizarre.
You know, but that was back in the 60s, you know?
Right.
But today, the world today is not very nice. And it isn't, not at all. Not at all.
All right. Thanks very much, David.
Thank you.
The world today is not very nice. Well, that's what the Mail says, yeah. 0845 6060 973. Going to go away for the new news, which will come shortly at 9 o'clock, and then be right back. It's LBC 97.3.
Are you disappointed with your...
So once again, and I don't know, you can't pick up the paper without without journalists having a go at kids. It seems to be the default setting for newspapers these days, which also means it's what everybody's talking about. Even Time magazine, you know, the magazine on the newsstands, the one that you see and never actually buy, that one. Even Time magazine put it on their front page. Britain's problems with binge drinking and youth violence are held up to the world, as the American magazine Time puts it on their front cover. A picture of a hoodie and mugshots of other young men over a Union flag. Its headline reads, "Unhappy, unloved, out of control. An epidemic of violence, crime and drunkenness has made Britain scared of its young." Time magazine. The weekly magazine, which goes on newsstands in Europe, Africa and the Middle East, worldwide really, cites a survey by the children's charity called T.S. Rebel. I've never heard of it. Which found last year that more than a fifth of Britons avoided going out at night rather than risk encountering groups of intimidating youths. That can't be true. A fifth! A statistic, you see. Beware. A 3,200-word article spread over several pages comments, "It's easy to see why. The boys and girls who casually pick fights, have sex and keep the emergency services fully occupied are often fueled by cheap booze." Which is, the latest story that they've got, however many it is, 37,000 pints and about 4,000 litres of spirits taken over a 2-week period from just over 5,000 kids, who presumably were in the process of starting up their own shops. The Time report says that British youngsters drink far more than their European counterparts, are more frequently involved in violence, are more likely to try drugs, and the English girls are the most sexually active in Europe. We're number one. We export drunken, stoned sluts to the world. Small wonder, then, that a 2007 UNICEF study of child well-being in 21 industrialised countries placed Britain... Well, where do you think we came of the child well-being? Now, you might remember this story when it came out. 21 industrialised countries... statistics for child well-being. Where do you think we came in the list? Towards the top, you'd think? Perhaps towards the top? We're Great Britain. We're British, damn it. About the middle, something like that? Towards the bottom, perhaps? Where do you think?
I'm going to go towards the bottom.
Towards
again.
the bottom. No, the bottom. Is there nothing that we're not best at? I mean, worst at?
We're best at being worse.
But exactly right. It's the only thing we can win at. Losing. A significant minority of British children, unhappiness and criminality, excessive drinking and drug taking and promiscuity has created a crisis. All over the world, teenagers give their parents headaches. Why the migraines induced by British kids felt across a whole society, says this article in Time magazine. Part of the reason may be that parents aren't always around to help socialise their children, or even just to show them any affection. Compared to other cultures, British kids are less integrated into the adult world and spend more time with their peers. That's been said a lot too. You know, if you go to Italy, France, Spain, so on, kids and parents mix a lot. They have dinner, they're always around with the family, even their sort of siblings don't leave home as soon as they can, partly because they can't afford to. And so you get generations all living in the same place. And only by associating with other adults do you get to experience their what is deemed acceptable behaviour. If they're just running around like a pack of dogs, then they'll never know. The article expresses particular concern at Britain's binge drinking culture. Alcohol Concern, the organisation Alcohol Concern, noted that 1 in 3 British men and 1 in 5 women drank double the amount considered safe at least once a week. And whenever I see those safe things, that's another example, I believe, of statistics being misused. And I've said this before, and I was talking to a friend of mine who is a doctor, and he explained it to me like this. You go into hospital and you are experiencing some sort of drink-related illness. And the doctor says, "Oh, right, okay. Well, how much do you drink then?" he says, his pen poised above the paper on his clipboard. And you say something that is not associated with the truth. Because if you told him the truth, you'd think that he would assume that you're a drunk. So you tell him, "Oh, not very much. Not very much at all. Hardly touch the stuff," you say, more or less. And he writes that down diligently, and then they crunch all these statistics together, and they come up with the theory that to drink not very much will land you in hospital. You see how they got to that statistic? It's because it's our fault. We lie. When did anybody ever honestly answer that question to a medical professional, how much do you drink? It's like people on diets. "Oh, I never eat anything, me. I had, half a pot of yogurt and an apple." But if you had a camera and you followed them around all day, the truth of the matter is rather different. It's just that they don't process that. They answer as they think that they should, as they sort of perceive themselves, which is positively. So that's a lie. Lie is perhaps a bit strong, but that's, I think we're being misdirected as far as how much you can drink. It's because it's all based on what people say, because otherwise how would they know? I mean, they're not conducting experiments by force-feeding people booze and seeing what happens, are they? So the only way they can possibly know is if people tell them how much they drink, and then they give them the physical, and if their liver explodes when they prod it, then they think, "Oh, well, that's a bad sign. That means that what you've drunk will kill you." And but they have got no idea how much they've drunk. They just have to ask. So it's all based on our lies.
So there's got no one to blame but ourselves.
Well, exactly right, yeah. Where was I? What was I talking about? What was I? I was in the middle of something. What was it? Oh, yeah, it was this, the Time magazine, right. So it's not just us, because the papers do seem to be obsessed with children's misbehaviour, don't they? And the latest one, as I say, was they took all of this booze off so many kids, and I'm not actually believing that, because if you do the mathematics, they were all carrying around about, 7 pints of beer and a litre of scotch. Every single one of them. That's absolutely rubbish, isn't it? I mean, they wouldn't be able, you couldn't fit that in a carrier bag. But it's got beyond our shores. Time magazine itself is pointing its finger at us and calling us a bunch of drunken, stoned sluts, basically. We're the drunken, stoned sluts of the world. And that's not really how we think of ourselves, is it? I mean, we read about ourselves on a daily basis, but we think, oh, that's other people. That's not us, that's not British people, that's other people did that. Awful people who don't represent us at all. But that is us, actually. And now the rest of the world is cottoning on, and they're thinking, oh, blimey. And eventually they think, oh, well, we better not go there then.
What's worrying is I think other countries might watch EastEnders and think it's a documentary.
Having never watched EastEnders, I must be about the only person in the country never to have done that. Oh, I've flipped past it, but every time I land on the channel that it's on, it's some ugly person whining.
That'll be Pat Butcher.
I don't know who they are. They're all ugly and they're all whining. Why would anybody watch that? I am genuinely mystified.
Because it makes us feel better about our lives.
I'm not sure that that's true. I don't think people watch it and think, oh, thank goodness I'm not them. I think people watch it to revel in their misfortune and misery. That can be the only explanation. I mean, I've sort of suggested many times that a nation's soaps are a direct reflection of the personality of the people. American soaps are all about acquisitiveness, materialism, shiny, happy, beautiful people stabbing each other in the back to get ahead. Do anything to, achieve the American dream, which is why they're all so very successful at making a ton of money over there. Having never seen any other... So Australian soaps are all... Well, I don't know what a proper Australian soap is like, actually. I've only seen the kids' ones, so I've got no idea what they are. But ours are all about misery. So that must be us, that is. I mean, if they do hold up a mirror to society, you'd have to assume that that's us. Because we look at them in a greater number than any other programme, with the possible exception of England at the World Cup. Hey, does Joe Parkinson want to come in?
Possibly, I'm just trying to ascertain that now. Bear with me.
What's she doing?
Hang on, I'll find out.
Where's she been tonight?
Wait! Patience!
I can't!
You're excited now, aren't you?
Well, I like having a chat with Jo. She's always... I live my life vicariously through Joe Parkinson, who's forever going to parties and openings and red carpet, this, that and the other. Getting glammed up. Me, on the other hand, I never do anything. Well, I don't actually do anything. Doing this slot means I go straight home to bed, and at the weekend I'm working too.
Well, just for you then.
Yes.
She'll come and say hello at 9:30.
Why, what's she done?
She's been to the Richard and Judy Book Awards, or the Richard and Judy have hosted some kind of book awards.
Oh, right. I am curious, because there's a few books that were up for awards, and I'm hoping beyond hope that they didn't get anything.
We shall find out at 9:30.
Yes. Okay. Well, that will be entertaining, educational, if a little amusing. The Richard and Judy Book Awards, eh? I can't wait. I really do genuinely hope that what's his name doesn't get an award. You know who. Don't ask me who. You know who I mean. 0845 6060 973. It's 9:15. LBC Travel with Will Gowing.
Thanks a lot, Nick. And tonight's...
Hello.
We're putting on our white tie, top hat and tails tomorrow for the Nick Ferrari Breakfast Show, because all three main candidates, Ken, Boris and Brian, will be here from 8 o'clock. It's the pre-match warm-up from 7 as Nick starts his show tomorrow morning, and then the after discussion shortly thereafter. You can record your question for the candidates by dialing 0870 1000 973, which is 0870 1000 973. Nick will be on the other end of the line in taped form. Follow his instructions and you can leave your question there, or you can email it if you like. Your question counts at lbc.co.uk. That's all one word. Your question counts at lbc.co.uk. Nick Ferrari tomorrow morning, LBC 97.3, in association with the Evening Standard. Here is Milne Gavey. Michael.
Nick, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. I just heard you talking about, how people can... We're always like a wee bit of doom and gloom when I heard you talking about EastEnders. Well, I've never watched EastEnders myself, because, obviously you can judge by my accent. I probably need subtitles to go along with it.
Yeah, couldn't understand a word they're saying.
Absolutely. I think we need to get the... But I think people like a good moan, especially here. I'm in Glasgow, especially the west coast of Scotland here. I think we like to moan. I'm quite a cynic. If I see the flowers, I want to know where the funeral is, you know?
Right. Actually, Glasgow, I think you touched on something there. Glasgow is it not noted for its misery?
Yes, and I totally agree, because the weather's always bad.
Right.
You know when it's summer here, the rain's warmer. And it's so true.
Well, that is true. I spent, I went to school in Edinburgh, which is just cold.
Yep.
Glasgow, on the other hand, is warmer but wetter.
Yes, I totally agree. But I think people just like a moan, you know. They like to moan at our work, we moan about other people, but we tend not to encourage other people. I don't know why, if it's our makeup or not. Maybe it's just we're maybe too hard on ourselves, or I don't know, or we just like a good old-fashioned moan.
Well, maybe that's it's also allied with our like of a drink as well. Maybe our sort of default setting is miserable.
Yeah.
So we just want to get out of that, and the only way that we found that really works every time is to go out and get bluttered.
Bluttered, absolutely. Or even if we're earning good money, we still want more money, so we'll moan about not having enough money. Once we've spent that money, we want more. Or we've achieved something, we want to achieve more. I don't know how many people that you know are actually totally 100% content in their life. You know, because we always seem to want more.
I don't think I know anybody who's... in fact, if somebody said that they were, I'd find that suspicious.
But that's you probably been the cynic in you then. You probably think, aye, right.
I'd want them to take a drugs test.
Absolutely. You know, I don't know, your own environment that you work in. Is everyone totally content of the money that they're earning, the hours that they're doing, and they're happy to go up the road and think, God, I'm going to go to work tomorrow and it's going to be great again?
Well, let me ask that same question to the people through the glass there. You work in show business. Are people in show business happy and content and, pleased with their lot and okay with the money that they're earning and happy to see other people's success?
Yes.
He lied.
Well, there you go. He was very sincere when he said that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, sometimes you should maybe adopt the American way. That seems to be very helpful to each other. Mind you, they're just getting fatter and fatter, mind you.
So are we.
You're looking great. Have another hamburger here. Shove that down your throat. It'll make you happy. But they tend to have a kind of a policy, good on you. Even if you win something, there's always a person in the background. You're under their breath, or they're calling you a bad name or something in this country. So why can't we just live and let live and be happy? At the end of the day.
I don't think it's a choice that you can make. I think you either are or you aren't. And I think that it's, apart from anything else, it's a chemical, because certain emotions are chemically based, aren't they? So I just think it's what we've passed on through generation to generation. If there is something wrong with us, I'm not suggesting that there is, but if that's what we're saying, it's a chemical, a lack of one chemical or another that's just making us a bit morose.
But I think most men, I'm turned into my dad.
Well, yeah.
I'm getting older.
Well, that's inevitable, I think.
Because I remember, watching Top of the Pops years and years ago, they've just become a noise. I'm sure you've heard all this before. Or then they've just been moaning about everything. There'd be too much roadworks on the road, and there's always queues when you're trying to get to your work. There's always queues when you're trying to get back. And
I think the point at which you turn into your dad is when you can't sit down without making a noise.
Or stand up without making a noise.
Yeah, you're like that.
Yeah.
Or you don't sit down anymore. You bend your knees a little bit and then free fall the rest of the way. Yeah.
Or you start becoming your dad when you actually walk up the stairs, and when you get to the top of the stairs, you think, well, why did I come to the top of the stairs again?
Yes.
And that tends to happen.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go back downstairs and you think...
And then you remember, yeah.
That's right, and then you've got to go back up the stairs again.
All right, thanks very much, Michael.
No problem at all.
Cheers.
Cheers, Nick.
He's right about Glasgow, by the way. I mean, there's a lot of Glasgow bands that write songs about rain. Why does it always rain on me? That was Travis. Was that Travis? Why does it always rain on me? A Glasgow band. And they wrote that song because it's always raining. I only like it when it rains. There's another rock pop hit. I'm only happy when it rains. I've got no idea. I must have played it 10,000 times at one of the places that I worked. I still can't remember who it's by. They were from Glasgow as well. It never stops raining. I was there for 3 months, working for one station a little while ago. For 3 months, and I'm not exaggerating in any way. It rained every day for 3 months. Can you imagine how miserable that must make you? And that's why Glasgow is thought of as generally dour. Here is Ealing. Hello, Claire.
Oh, hello.
Claire.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Talking about Scotland, there's a good thing about having less sun, because a lot of the people up there look a bit younger. That's what I've found, anyway. Not what I called in about, but it's a comment.
Right, I see what you mean, yeah.
I just wanted to talk about the fact you were saying there was no glass ceiling anymore, because it slightly infuriated me.
Really?
I think you're right in the media. If somebody's a journalist, that's totally acceptable for a woman to move up the scale.
Yeah.
But if you do something technical, it's really difficult. And I've always been an engineer, and it's just been a nightmare the whole time.
Really? What kind of an engineer?
A sound engineer.
Ah.
So, do you need a sound engineer at the moment?
I don't think we do. Do we even have one of those?
Well,
the sound engineers itself here, we're all
You
automatic.
probably have somebody controlling the faders, something like that.
Yeah.
But,
he's very good.
and I've downgraded my expectations recently, and I've gone for interviews where there's been a bank of other guys up for interview.
Yeah.
And they've got half my qualifications and experience, and they still get the job.
Maybe it's your personality, Claire.
I think that's part of it, I have to agree.
Well, so is it radio that you're going for?
No, it's anything, absolutely anything.
Right.
You know, I'm totally available and very, very cheap. But I'll tell you how I got round it. I have my own little company, which is nothing to do with engineering. So I actually am the head of that little company. So I've run that to subsidise myself as a sound engineer. That's the only way I've been able to do it. But it's been really, really rough. And a lot of the times you can hear what guys are saying through the foldback, and they don't realise. You've got your headphones on. You can hear what they're saying, and they say things like women and technology don't mix. All that stuff going on. You know, you've got to battle against it.
Yes. That is, by the way, if you're either in radio or considering getting into the business, don't shoot your mouth off in the studio, even when the microphone is off, because when the microphone is off, it's still on.
Exactly.
Ain't that right, Claire? Yeah.
Well, we can hear what you're saying, you know.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Well, I just thought I'd make a comment because I was driving home in the car and I just heard what you were saying and I just wanted somebody to know.
Well, that must be very irritating for you because, I mean, particularly in radio, it didn't used to be the case, certainly. And
it's much easier, actually, I have to say, in broadcast and radio, I have done a bit of that. It's much easier to get in as a woman, but when you're in rock and pop, it's just very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, I've managed to survive it for 15 years or so, but it's getting to the point where everyone's finding it difficult, but it's always been more difficult for women doing a technical thing, and people can be very, very patronising. And you've just got to grin and bear it because you can't upset the client, you know.
Yeah, I suppose so, but then the inverse of that is that if a man wants to do one of the caring professions, then he's looked at askance too. You think, oh, well, why does a bloke want to do this? That's
I agree.
A bit weird.
It's wrong on both levels. You know, it's got to change. Well, I hope it changes. I hope it doesn't take another 100 years to change, you know.
But don't you think that it really has... I mean, it might have taken a very long time to get to this point, but it hasn't been a steady change. It was a little bit of a change over the first sort of 90 years, and in the last 10, it's changed beyond all recognition. I mean, just to go back to radio, I mean... if you didn't have to go back very far, and you wouldn't be able to... If you came in and sprayed a radio station with bullets, you'd never hit a woman. But these days, they're all over the place. At the absolute highest level.
When I started, there was actually a lot of women coming into technical jobs. Before that, I was a computer operator, and it was... I'm talking about sort of the end of the 80s, the early 90s. But it's actually gone backwards, and I don't know if it's the media, but it's actually changed. And you know, I'm slightly afraid of calling in because I'm one of the only women left doing this, and everybody who'll hear this, who knows me, will know who I am.
They know where you live.
Exactly, and and I think it's become more difficult now. You know, I think people have battened down the hatches, and whereas I say it's easy to get into certain jobs where you're accepted. Technical jobs, it can be much more difficult.
Right. Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck, Claire.
Well, thanks very much, and keep my number just in case you need an engineer.
Yeah, righto. What you need to do, by the way, to get employed as an engineer is wear jeans that don't come in your size, wear an old Iron Maiden T-shirt, and a bunch of keys about the size of a football hanging off your...
those.
Oh, you do? Right, OK, well, then you're ahead of the game.
Right.
All right, best of luck, Claire. Thanks very much.
Take care, bye.
This is LBC. I'm Nick Abbott. We're going towards the news. If you want to join in, it's 0845 6060 973. We're going to have Joe Parkinson in. She'll be talking about the Richard and Judy Book Awards.
Enjoy working with people.
I particularly enjoy working with Joe Parkinson, our show business correspondent, or head of show business, or...
Showbiz bird will do.
Isn't that awful?
It's supposed to be showbiz editor, but it sounds a bit like, ooh,
no, you're the show business editor. Of course you are. Show it off. Now, you've been somewhere bizarre this evening.
Yeah.
And it's all Oprah's fault.
Yeah, and Richard and Judy's.
It's Richard and Judy's Book Club Awards.
Well, it's the British Book Awards. They've been going for 19 years. But since Richard and Judy got involved, on the back of the fact they do this book club on their chat show, it's become this celebrity event. And it's held at the Grosvenor House Hotel. And every year, more and more celebrities seem to turn up. And it's quite funny. It doesn't sit, so you get the likes of Jordan and Jerry Halliwell and Abby Titmuss on the red carpet with, very distinguished writers.
Now, before Richard and Judy got involved, was it a respected... Not that I'm saying that since Judy and Richard got involved it's not respected anymore. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Was it a respected book award, like the Booker Prize?
It was very well respected within the industry of writers, I think, but no one else had heard of it. I mean, there's no way 3 or 4 years ago I would have gone down to cover it, but what they've realised is if they get people like Jordan, Katie Price to come along, then press will come along to cover it and they get headlines the next day. So, Jordan is pretty much nominated every year now, ever since she made a grand entrance. It was like 3 years ago, I think, for her first autobiography. She's had 2 out since then as well.
What? Yeah. She's had 3 autobiographies.
3 autobiographies. And she's now got a range of children's books which were nominated in the W.H. Smith Children's Book category. But it just seems that everybody is jumping on the bandwagon. Jerry Halliwell was there tonight, and she's joined Jordan and Madonna, Kylie, Kerry Katona, all these pop stars have thought, what can I do next? Or so-called stars. Let's write a series of children's books. It can't be that hard. And she's called hers Eugenie Lavender. And I asked her what they're about, and of course she had to get the word girl power in there.
I think she's the rebirth of girl power. I was looking, when I started writing her a few years ago, I was looking for a medium, because I love writing and I love reading myself. And I created her and then a gang of friends to go with her, and she kind of challenges the world that she lives in. She's naughty, but she tries to be good, and she tries to, kick ass a little bit, and she's sweet at the same time.
That phrase, kick ass, it just never sounds right in the British accent, does it?
You say kick ass.
Kick ass.
Yeah.
When Americans say it, it sounds, like they're about to get down to business.
Yeah.
When British people say it, it's almost as though they're picking up the phrase with a pair of tongs and holding it far away from them, doesn't it?
Very awkwardly.
Yeah.
So that's Jerry's new career move, is children's books.
But honestly, though, Jerry, Madonna,
Jordan, Kerry Katona.
Are these people actually writing these books?
Well, there's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know for a fact. Jerry says that she writes her own, that she's been writing them. It's just so funny. Everybody thinks they've got a book in them, don't they? I don't know. I find it hard to believe that Jordan has written her series of children's books. She's actually at Harrods tomorrow, launching the second one called Mermaids and Pirates, and she's going to be dressing up as a mermaid. If anyone fancies going down to Harrods to see Jordan dressed up as a mermaid, 11 o'clock is the photo call.
Right.
She's looking forward to that. But tonight she was nominated for this one called Pony's Handbook and Horse's Tale, I think it was. And I asked her where she got the inspiration from.
Well, with the pony care book, that was my idea, because I'm into horses. I've just bought another 2, actually, horses. One came at the weekend, and I bling all their brushes up, and everyone's like, hey, we can't brush your horse with them brushes and all of that. So I put the ideas like that in the book, got pics of me and my horses, and I used to love reading them as a kid. And the stories, the horse stories, I used to read Jill's Gymkhanas and Ginny, them sort of stories, and that's what inspired me to do the horse ones.
So that's the extent of children's reading, is Jill's Gymkhanas and Ginny.
And them sort of stories.
Yeah.
Are we seriously expected to believe that this woman who can't express herself in the English language writes books? Do me a favour.
I knew you'd love this one, Nick. I knew it. It was just quote after quote tonight, where you know when you're just standing there, just smiling to yourself. Everybody, all of them think that they've got a book in them.
Yeah.
Strictly Come Dancing's winner, Alicia Dixon, was there. You know her of Mystique fame, and
I don't. Who's that?
She won Strictly Come Dancing.
I'd be rubbish at your job. I don't know who anybody is anymore.
Well, no, you would be rubbish then. They'd all be passing you by, and then you'd come home with nothing.
Exactly.
Well, luckily I know who they are.
Who's Alicia Dixon?
Well, she used to be in Mystique.
What's that?
It was a band, and then she got married to a guy called Harvey, who was in the So Solly crew. He cheated on her. He cheated on her with Javine.
Oh, Javine! Who's that?
She was in one of the X Factors, and then Alicia went on to win Strictly Come Dancing.
My brain
hurts. The end. So, of course, she's got a book in her.
I've been writing a book actually for years.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm a songwriter anyway. So I think if you're a songwriter, you naturally write poems and you write journals, and I've always kept journals. So definitely, yeah.
Is it an autobiography or is it fiction?
I haven't made any decisions on it yet, but as I said, for me, it's just about writing something that I can be proud of, and that's something that's honest and a true reflection of myself, really. So we'll just see.
It's going to be a true reflection of herself. She hasn't even decided whether it's fiction or autobiography yet. Good. Now, okay, Alicia Dixon, I want to get some of her poetry up. What's the name of her band?
Mystique. Get some of the poetry,
right.
It's brilliant.
Mystique. I want you to look for lyrics of Mystique. Name a song of theirs. I bet if I paid you £1 million, you couldn't whistle one of their tunes.
No, but she used to actually do the MCing, when it was like a girl group, but the difference was that they had a girl MC, and she would MC.
Now, Victoria has just typed in Misteeq.
That's right, that's how you spell it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I rest my case.
Nick, you're so undone with the kids.
I know I am. Yeah, I'm rubbish, I am. Okay, here we go. It starts, la 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 la, boy, I wanna be with you. Great start.
Yeah.
Sitting looking in the mirror like Alice through the looking glass, life's a never-ending journey, be careful not to go too fast. I think I've read
Which
enough.
one was that one?
This is one called All I Want.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
You can get it as a ringtone.
Brilliant.
I'd rather kill myself.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a Mystique rap in there, because Alicia used to do the rapping.
Well, I think the rap was la 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 la. Yeah, must have taken all day to write that.
Brilliant, genius. So then along came Abby Titmuss.
Who's that?
Another literary genius. You know who Abby Titmuss is?
I honestly have no idea. I've heard the name.
Really?
Who is she?
She was the one who was going out with John Leslie when the whole scandal broke. She was a nurse, first of all, and then she got famous off the back of John Leslie and started doing lads mags and, doing all the rude shots and things like that.
Yeah.
She even actually did a show at LBC once.
Oh, it was fabulous.
Yeah, it really was. But anyway, guess what? She's also got an autobiography out, except that she's trying to disguise it as something different.
It's called The Secret Diaries of Abigail Titmuss, and it's out in July. And I've got a bad back because I had a deadline for it last week, and I sat at my laptop every day from like 9 in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning for 7 days, and I wrote 40,000 words in a week.
So you're actually writing it yourself?
I've had a ghostwriter that's helped me, Lucy Kay. She's helped me over the last 2 years. But yeah, I've completely trampled all over her, and she's been brilliant about it. So I just really had to write a lot of it myself. You've got to.
What's it like putting your life onto paper?
It's crazy putting your life down. Some bits I read back to myself, and I couldn't believe that was me, the things that had happened and that I've done, and it's a pretty entertaining read, to say the least. It's like a cross between Piers Morgan's The Insider and Bridget Jones. One of my friends read the draft that I wrote, and she said it's like Bridget Jones on rocket fuel.
Can you believe it?
Well, actually, she's the only person so far who sounds like she is capable of writing a book.
Yes. Yeah, she has got a bit of a history, though. She's done lots of rude tapes and things like that, so if that's all in the book, it's going to be a good...
who hasn't, Joe? Let's be honest.
I'd have to see yours.
There was... no, you wouldn't. There was an article about this sort of thing in the Telegraph just the other day. It says that literary agents have criticised one of Britain's most distinguished publishers for dropping serious historical titles in favour of celebrity memoirs. Wiedenfield and Nicholson, which is owned by the Orion Publishing Group, has published authors such as Harold Wilson, Lyndon Johnson, Henry Kissinger, Pope John Paul II. Now they're throwing out stuff like Charlotte Church's Keep Smiling and My Life Behaving Badly by Leslie Ash. That's a bit of a come-down, really, for a publishing house, isn't it? There goes the country.
This was what I was quite keen to ask people about, actually, is, and, there were great writers there, like the guy that wrote Kite Runner, Khaled Hosseini, I think it is. He was there and going completely unnoticed.
Right, of course.
And
it doesn't have big boobs.
No,
probably.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, whereas Jordan and Jerry Halliwell were everywhere, and they'll be the one that will be in the newspapers tomorrow.
Yes.
Talking about men behaving badly, actually, Leslie Ash, Neil Morrissey was there. I like him. And he came along just after Abby Titmuss, so I said, oh, did you know that Abby Titmuss is having a autobiography out, and would you read it?
No. Why? What do I want to know about that stuff for? I mean, what's going to be in there that wasn't already in the tabloids? Bless her, but, I don't think I'll be rushing out to buy it. And I don't think any of my friends will be rushing out to buy it for me. If I'm going to put the time in for a book, because they do take a bit of time to get through, I want to get something back out of them. I mean, I'm not really interested in what size boots Wayne Rooney wears, do you know what I mean?
There you go.
Has Colleen written a book yet?
Yes.
I mean, she's, 16? She must have an autobiography, has she?
She's written one,
Has she?
That came out last year.
Truth.
See, it's big business there, and that's why I guess this publishers have decided to do that, because they do sell a lot of copies.
It's a bit dispiriting, really. I mean, if you look at the bestsellers lists, the Sunday Times print it every week. If it's not Jeremy Clarkson, well, at least he's funny.
Yeah.
And he sells a boatload of books, it will be somebody on television that you can't... nobody in their right mind surely would want to read about their silly little lives. I mean, most of them are barely out of their teens, and there's almost nothing else.
Well, Jade Goody was number one when she released her autobiography, so that just...
I rest my face.
Exactly. I was talking about it at the weekend, because Ant and Dec have signed a £2.8 million deal to write their life story. Now, I know that they're fantastic TV presenters, but who cares about their life?
They don't...
They haven't really got anything to tell us apart from what we already know.
I mean, they've got to be the two most bland, beige, boring people on television. They do beige and boring for a living. That's what they do. What are they going to tell us that's... I mean, they're not going to tell us anything, even if there is something in the wardrobe.
But that would have come out by now. That would have been in the newspapers.
Well, yes, but because no one's had anything on them, he rather indicates that they've not ever done anything interesting, and they're not going to ruin their career by telling us what we haven't found out now.
Yeah.
So it'll be... I don't understand. I don't understand anything anymore, Joe. It's
depressing, isn't it? And there they are, £2.8 million in the bank.
Yes.
It's really, really depressing.
Like they need the money.
Yeah, well, exactly. They probably get that per series of Saturday Night Takeaway. And just finally,
whatever that is.
Whatever. Do you not watch that either?
No.
Oh, I'm gonna have to. I like coming on and talking to you in your little bubble. And the last person I spoke to was Barry Humphries.
Oh, well, see, Barry Humphries. There you go.
He's a decent type of bloke. He's actually written 2 autobiographies and says that he won't read anybody else's because they're, quite frankly, dull.
Because I can't find anyone quite as interesting as I am. Celebrities are really, I suppose, the new non-entity. I don't much read them. I'm interested in the biographies of historical figures or authors. But everyone's story is interesting and dramatic, as long as they write it themselves. The ghost-written book doesn't impress me at all.
When you write your autobiography, are you thinking of you, or are you thinking of Dame Edna?
I never think of Dame Edna. No. I'd almost forgotten about her.
Bless him.
He sounds like he's stuck out like a sore thumb. I mean, there's an actual, a genuine funny man and an intellectual. What was he doing there?
Well, I know, but there was a real divide. There was, the people like him, Richard Attenborough was there, really nice, and, great to chat to him. And then there was Jerry and Jordan and Abby Titmuss, and I thought I'd give you those cuts because they're more amusing than what Richard Attenborough had to say,
Okay.
even though he's very sweet.
Now, just before you go, on the news, we've been running a snippet of a little chat that you had with George Clooney yesterday.
Yeah.
And I would like to raise a finger of objection.
Oh, no.
He said he sometimes wakes up in the morning and looks ugly.
Yes. Speaking
on behalf of ugly people the whole world over, I would like to give George the finger. Oh, no, you don't, mate. You were up close, as near enough to touch him, right? Do his protestations actually hold water?
No, I mean that's why he's called Gorgeous George.
Yeah,
he's lovely. He's dreamy, gorgeous. Like, what can I say?
Sickening, isn't it, James? He hasn't even got the strength. He hasn't even got the strength to reply. Yeah. Joe, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure as always.
Cheers.
It's 0845 6060 973 LBC 946. It's Travel with Will Gowing.
Thanks a lot, Nick. Sutherland Avenue in Bayswater tonight, still closed south.
I'm listening, dear. You can talk to me.
We have a How Low auction going at the moment. It's for a 32-inch Samsung LCD television. It is one of these super fantastic HD-ready jobs, built-in Freeview, all those extra channels. You could win it for literally pennies. It's a reverse auction. The person with the lowest unique bid wins. Text LBC plus your bid in pence to 88821 if you want to enter. If it was a bid of 21 pence, you would text LBC 21 to 88821. Bids cost £1.50 plus your standard network rate. Lines close 7 p.m. Thursday, 10th April. Bidders must be over 16. See lbc.co.uk for full terms and conditions. And talking about people that I've never heard of, the list of the planet's sexiest women is about to be revealed. This is FHM magazine. Oh, I read their name out. I always try to excise the name of the people that come up with these silly and spurious polls in order to irritate them, because that's why they do it.
You mentioned every other magazine just to balance it out.
Yeah, that's right. And I've never heard of hardly anybody on this list. But first, let me take this call on the M11. Hello, Carlo.
How you doing, Nick? You all right?
Good, thanks.
Good. Thanks for taking my call. Anyway, I was going to say, obviously, I was listening to your chat just now, obviously, on publishing and autobiographies and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a point here. My other half, she's written kind of like an entire series of children's books, and also she's written another 5 books, which are sort of two-parters over the last 5.5 years. It just seems to be, I mean, she hasn't gone to a publisher as yet, but it just seems to be that if she's not a Katie Price or an Abby Titmuss, she probably doesn't stand a chance.
No, I don't think so, no.
But, so I would have to get her to go down the, maybe the Abby Titmuss route first.
Well, if you think you can stand it, Carlo.
It might help, who knows, we'll see.
All right, taking one for the team, eh?
Yeah, no worries, I'll see what I can do.
All right, cheers, mate, good luck.
Cheers, mate, bye.
0845 6060 973. It is a bit dispiriting, really. It's like a sign of the times, isn't it? It's cashing in. It's for the quick buck, for want of a better phrase. Because they get instant recognition because it's somebody that people have heard of. You get the picture on the front cover, their boobs pointing right at you, in most cases. And so people will put it off the shelf in great numbers before everyone's realised that it's rubbish. Because I would imagine that the peak of sales is huge in the first week when all the publicity is on, and then just drops like a stone afterwards. So they're just going for that initial rush, and then they can cut and run. So really, they're not in it for the long game at all. You'd have to think that if somebody like... you don't have to go back very far. If somebody like the Harry Potter woman came along now, you wouldn't think that they'd have a chance. I mean, she hasn't had her boobs out in the tabloid press. How's she in print?
This is a bugbear of mine, though, because we scoff at Abby Titmuss and Jorns. They've written 3 autobiographies.
Yeah.
Who are the fools? Them for writing it?
Oh, absolutely.
And cashing in?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it us for buying it?
Absolutely, yeah, you're quite right. I mean, if somebody came along and said, I'll give you £1 million, all you have to do is put your name to a book that somebody else will write. We'll just give you the cheque and you can put your feet up and smoke a cigar. You'd have to be off your chump to say no. And then people like you, James, sit here and criticise them. How could you? Here's Beckenham. Hello, Jim.
Hi, good evening, Nick.
Jim.
Hi, that Scottish bloke going on about people moaning. What's he on about? People get a lot of pleasure out of moaning. I moan a lot, and I get pleasure out of it. So
you seem so cheery, Jim.
Pardon? So why?
You seem such a happy soul.
Well, why is he moaning about people moaning? He should start to get pleasure out of having a bit of a moan and take it as a natural progression in life.
there is something to be said about this country being masochistic. I think partly, and it manifests itself in many and various different ways. I think the old method of instilling school discipline, there's a little bit of that, and just wallowing in misery. I think that there is a definite masochistic streak.
Yeah, I must admit, I do tend to wallow a little bit at the earliest opportunity. But I just had to laugh when he was moaning about people moaning, and yet he was moaning himself.
Yeah, well, that's right, yeah. But still, mustn't grumble, though, eh?
No, not at all. I'm not going to moan anymore.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, Jim. Keep smiling. Yeah, and if I had to choose between being masochistic, as not personally, but as a society, or sadistic, I think masochism wins, doesn't it? Because sadism is just, that's where nastiness leads. Whereas masochism, you're just eating yourself up from the inside. You're not actually inflicting much on others. So I think we chose the right path. I mean, there are some countries that you could say are sadistic. Let's list them now.
Oh, is that the time already?
Along with their head of states. Let's blame them personally. Come on, let's name names. You go ahead, James. Start it off. That's a no, isn't it? Sexiest women alive. Kirsty Allsop. Who's that?
The one off the telly.
Well, that doesn't narrow it down very much.
She does all the property programmes.
Never heard of her. Kirsty Allsop is officially one of the planet's sexiest women, according to a poll, which I assume they just made up. What, do they go out in the street and ask everybody, excuse me? Punch in the mouth, wouldn't you? The location presenter has been voted into the top 100 sexiest women in the world list. Well, I'm amazed they could come up with a list of 100. Not that I'm saying that there aren't 100 sexy women in the world, but if you had to name 100... well, you'd run out pretty quickly, wouldn't you? I mean, who can keep the names of 100 famous people in their heads?
Well, I thought what they did with these surveys is they already had 100 names, and they say point to the one that's the sexiest, and that's how they put them in the list.
Really?
Or they have, 110. So the 10 bottom ones just get cut off, and they say, the top 100. I'm sure, because otherwise you could list anybody. If you said, sexiest woman, most blokes, if they were standing there with their wife, would say, my wife.
Yes.
So
and I'm sure my wife doesn't appear on the list. Now, that is an interesting theory, but if you think about how that would work in the street, probably not, because carrying 100 photographs around, even if they were small passport-size photographs, that would take up a lot of space. So people would be unfolding, telegraph-sized double pages of people's photographs, and you wouldn't have time to look at them all, would you? So it must be just either people reporting what they think, and then they go away and they crunch it down to the top 100. Or, more likely, they just make it up. Supermodel Kate Moss... no, hang on, it's good news. Supermodel Kate Moss and singer Jennifer Lopez have been squeezed out this year. Not among the 100 sexiest women. Well, it's about time that everybody else caught up to that idea. Kate Moss, do me a favour. Stick-thin, pizza-faced, wall-eyed, thick bird. No offence. Jump in and, defend her any time you like. What's a no? The unlikely sex symbol Allsop is set to make 96th place in the FHM poll. I would keep quiet about that, really. 96th out of 100. It really is, yeah. TV presenter Mylene Klass. Who's that?
She was in Hearsay.
Who?
That band of pop stars.
And she did the One Show or something. And she's also in the M&S ads as well.
Right.
And she had a baby recently.
Oh, a baby. That narrows it down. Abby Titmus, previously mentioned, all expected to be absent. Favourites for top position, Cheryl Cole. Who's that?
Oh, well, even I've lost track now.
And Jessica Alba. Never heard of her. Hey, what have we talked about tonight then, eh?
Don't touch the bins if the lids aren't on.
Oh, yeah.
We're 3 times better off, but no happier.
Yes.
Are we indeed happy? The Easterlin paradox. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. George Clooney sometimes wakes up ugly.
No, he doesn't.
44,000 litres of booze are taken off just 5,000 kids.
Yeah. Liar.
We talked about peach cider. Drug trials are stopped at the first sign of success. Keith Richards falling out of trees is potentially lethal.
Very dangerous.
35 trillion children were killed in America in 1995.
Yeah, shocking.
And I've run out of time.
I've run out of time. Anthony is next on LBC.